You might be wondering why I, a professional photographer and full-time content creator, bought a almost 5-year-old Sony point-and-shoot camera as the newest camera in my camera arsenal. Let's find out why. But first, let's unbox it. So why did I buy a camera that came out almost 5 years ago in May 2020? Well, the answer is pretty simple, and that it's actually for a new project. And that project is a podcast. Yes, I am starting a new podcast called The Ground Up that is all about talking and having conversations with other creators, artists, entrepreneurs, and doers around things like how they got to where they are, who they are as people, who they are outside of what we know them as, and everywhere in between. It'll be a much more relaxed and candid form of podcast instead of a more strict interview style, because I feel like there are enough interview style formats out there. I just want this to be a conversation and make it feel like you guys are there with us while having these conversations. The reason it's called The Ground Up is, number one, I am absolutely obsessed with coffee, which is where the word ground or grounds come from. Grinding coffee beans, that's the inspiration for that. And number two, building something from the ground up is what all of these guests and all of these people have in common. Whether they are a fellow creator like me, whether they are an artist or an entrepreneur, all of these people are people that are absolute doers. They don't just talk the talk, they walk the walk, and they have built something along the way. But with that, I only really have one main camera, and that is my Sony a7 IV, the one that I'm filming this on right now. So I actually needed another camera and a third camera, which I'll get to in a second. And they are specifically for more close-up tight angles of each individual guest and myself, the host, which is where this comes in. Yes, this was introduced way back in May 2020, so it is like 4.5 years old, but so is my a7 IV, kind of, and they have very similar video specs that I need for when editing the video podcast together in post-production. Both my cameras, both the Sony a7 IV and now the ZV-1, shoot 4K at 30 FPS uncropped, and they both shoot in S-Log3, the same color space as each other, which means it'll be very easy to color grade and look consistent in post. In fact, on paper, for my camera bag, most people and myself would agree that this camera might have more cons than it does pros, but I've pretty much thought of every con that this camera can possibly throw at me, and I have a solution for all of them. The biggest one that I thought of is, because it's a podcast, it'll be a lot more long format. So number one, I need to make sure that this camera has no record limit, and number two, that the battery will last long enough. There is no record limit, I believe, at 4K, which is a huge check mark, and the battery is not really an issue because I'm gonna have this camera plugged in to a power source at all times when recording a podcast. The other consideration that is not relevant at all is the microphone. The microphone on this is actually apparently really good, but it doesn't really matter because I'll be recording the audio for my podcast totally separate from my cameras. And then a totally separate but equally as important reason why I got this camera, and especially why I got this camera in white, is because I wanted to get Britt a camera that she can travel with and make content with all the time. My camera, the a7 IV, is obviously a bit more advanced for somebody that knows nothing about photography or videography, but this is literally a daily point and shoot that you can bring all the time with you and is very, very small. It has all the tech specs that you would need as a casual content creator, minus a flash, which I did wish this had a flash like the Canon G7X, but cut my losses. I went for the better video capabilities instead in this camera over a flash, and I really, really think this was the better choice. And also, if you know anything about this camera was literally marketed and designed towards content creators, especially with that product defocus or product focus feature, whatever they call it. On this camera here, if I put something like in front of me like this, the camera might not actually focus on it. It'll stay locked on my eyes because the camera is not sure if this my camera, the thing that I'm holding, is more important than my eyes. But on the ZV-1, it has a product focus feature, which even if I'm not covering my face, but I put a product towards the camera, the ZV-1 will automatically rack focus to the product and then back to me if I bring the product away from the camera. It's a small feature that I won't use. Maybe Britt will use it for her content, but it is really cool that this has it. And as much as pros don't want to admit it, the tilty flippy screen is really, really handy. I use it almost every single day on my a7 IV. It's almost a must-have feature in all Sony cameras. And that's it. Like I said here, the big news with this camera is that I am starting a podcast that will live here on YouTube and on Spotify, and I am so excited to have these candid, casual conversations with friends, people I don't know, other people in the industry, and it will just be a super, super relaxed, but also very informative time for you, the audience. And that's it. I hope you guys liked this video. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, like the video down below, and leave a comment what you guys want to see more of on this channel. But until next time, I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.